Power represented here today, and I come to ask you to go all out to get every Negro in this county registered to vote.
That was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1966, urging black citizens of Kingstree, South Carolina, to exercise their newfound right to vote. A right secured just a year earlier when Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law. Nearly 60 years later, the law that ensured that right is now under attack. Yesterday, the Supreme Court appeared poised to weaken a key provision in that landmark civil rights legislation, the one designed to allow black Americans to not just vote without fear of intimidation or violence, but also without fear that they will be discriminated against on the basis of their race, color, or language. There on stage with Dr. Martin Luther King for that 1966 speech, all the way down to the right there, highlighted, was a man named Andrew Young. Young became Dr. King's right-hand man in 1957 and was by his side quite literally until the day he was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. From there, he realized King's legacy, becoming the first African-American elected to Congress from Georgia since Reconstruction. Then he was ambassador to the UN for Jimmy Carter, and finally mayor of Atlanta, bringing the Olympics there. Young had so many careers. My colleague Rachel Maddow has a two-part documentary on his life and his impact called Andrew Young, The Dirty Work. I watched it in full last night, and I will tell you again, as I've told you multiple times already, it is fantastic.
When it was something that needed to be done and nobody wanted to do it, that was my job.
Now, we've been in quite a fight here. We just want to let you know that we are marching for you.
Andrew Young.
Andrew Young.
Andrew Young.
Now I will call for Andrew Young, that dedicated leader.
I've been through many dangers, toils, and snares.
Now, nothing's going to happen. We're going to the church.
Martin Luther King was looking for an assistant to do all the dirty work.
We don't intend to quit this fight until we get our situation resolved.
I was born for this.
Joining us now, host of the Rachel Maddow Show and executive producer of the new MSNBC documentary, Andrew Young, The Dirty Work, Rachel Maddow. Rachel, really good to have you.
Katie, thank you so much. Thank you for watching the film. Thank you for saying that you liked it. I'm so happy to have it out in the world, but to have like friends and colleagues finally able to tell me whether they liked it or not, I feel a lot of agita, a lot of anxiety. So I'm really
well, let me be fully
like
transparent with you because we're friends. I'm going to say that last night when I went home, I was looking forward to watching the Great British Baking Show, which is what I do. In order to disassociate from the world, I kind of take a step back. And then I thought, oh, no, I got to watch this documentary. And there was a little bit of heaviness because I thought this is going to be a heavy topic. But I watched it and it was inspiring. It made me feel better about the world. I mean, I had it on my phone. I could not put it down. I had to take a brief break to put my kids to sleep. And then I went right back to it. I loved it. I genuinely loved it. How did you decide to do it, and why now?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I'm so glad that it worked for you and that it meant that to you. So you may or may not know, I think you know, it's really, really hard to get a documentary made right now. You would think that we are in this sort of golden age of documentaries because there's so many out and there's so much appetite for them and so many streaming services and everything are showing so many of them and there's so many good ones being made. But actually on the business side, making a documentary right now, it's really hard. That said, Andrew Young is still with us. He is 93 years old. And when we learned that he wanted to tell his story in a way he's never told it before. He wanted to talk about not just what other people did, what Dr. King did, what the movement did, what they achieved, but actually what it was like for him personally, emotionally, in terms of his life, the difficulties, that sort of interior story of what it meant to be in that movement in the way that he was. I just knew that we had to force it. We had to find a way, by hook or by crook, to have him tell this story, to be able to narrate. I did not want some voice of God narrator, third person voice actor narrating this. I didn't want to be narrating this story. When we learned that he could tell this story himself and that he would reflect on it in the way that he did here, which he's never done before, I just knew we had to clear the decks and pull out all the stops and do it. And I'm so glad he did it.
He sounded great. And there were so many good lessons in it, because you look back on that time, and I think it's easy to forget that things were difficult and that it seemed very difficult to enact change and to make progress and to gain rights. I mean, there were bloody battles fought in the streets in the 60s, especially here in this country. And so looking back, I think is a good reminder that we have come a long way and we can still make improvements. It is possible. One of the interesting lessons I got out of this was him talking about the power of an economic protest. I want to play a little portion of that from the first episode.
The boycott was almost 100% effective. Nobody was buying anything but food or medicine for almost 90 days. And with business, if there's conflict, if you cut into the business 5%, they feel it.
After the great struggle, this day is clearly the moment of the great victory.
The end result was that Birmingham actually desegregated itself a year and a half before the federal government got around to it.
So interesting. It was effective. They desegregated because of the economic power of the boycott. When we look at today and we look at how our lives are controlled, our attention is subjugated by just a handful of corporations, a handful of billionaires, is it still possible to affect that kind of economic impact?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. And I think even just this year, just within the past couple of months, we're already seeing that. I mean, seeing that footage, it's a good reminder that, like, in retrospect, every victory seems inevitable. But in the moment, they had no idea whether or not this was going to work. They did have this insight into, the difference between the political leadership of Birmingham and the business leadership of Birmingham. And even though there was a lot of crossover between those entities, and from the outside it might have looked like all the same people, the white citizens councils and all that, they knew that the public-facing nature of Birmingham businesses meant that they were susceptible to economic pressure. And I think we're seeing that exact same thing, that exact same strategic thinking in some of the institutions and corporations that are being pressured by Trump. Like, can you pressure Donald Trump? Can you pressure Stephen Miller? Can you pressure J.D. Vance through the power of sort of street organizing and political protest? I don't know. I don't know if they feel any of these things. But to the extent that they need to rely on public-facing businesses and institutions in order to get what they want for the country, well, those entities very much are susceptible to public pressure. And you saw it, obviously, with the Jimmy Kimmel fiasco with ABC and Disney and Nexstar and Sinclair. But I think that you're starting to see it in the strategic thinking that Americans are having around not wanting these corporations and institutions and professional groups and entities to do what Trump wants. And even if you can't pressure Trump, you may be able to pressure them.
Another one of the lessons that I thought was interesting, wasn't as effective, was the Poor People's March. This ended up happening after MLK was shot and killed, but it still happened. They went to Washington, and the idea was there's power amongst the poor. Take out the division between white and black. That is a division that's created in order to keep you powerless. Come together, and we can affect change for working people, for their livelihoods, to make lives more affordable and better. There's those divisions are still being created, still being fostered, still being fed today. Why is it still so effective?
Andrew Young reflects on that in the film in a way that I found very, very moving. Obviously, the Poor People's Campaign, the Poor People's March on Washington, the footage of that will absolutely blow your mind when people see the film.
Totally. They camped out on the National Mall. I had no idea.
Yeah, and being tear gassed and beaten and dragged out of there. I mean, it looks like Chicago today, honestly. Yeah. But to see Ambassador Young reflecting on that now, about doing that in the wake of the assassination of Dr. King, amid the despair and and depression and sense of personal loss and sense of being sort of at sea, to still be trying to pull that off in his name, and the different pull just within him as a man, as an organizer, in terms of wanting to do that and also feeling incapable of doing anything because he's so bereft by the loss of his friend. I mean, that to me is, again, the sort of thing that we couldn't do a movie about that without Andrew Young being able to talk about it in his own terms, in his own first-person reflections. And so I think it is really priceless, particularly when we're in another moment, very different time. But we do have, I mean, the day after this airs on MSNBC tomorrow night, probably 6 million people are going to go out and protest against the Trump administration on Saturday. And so to be able to reflect on not only the tactical and strategic wisdom of that generation, but also just the personal cost of what it means to participate in a movement like that against very difficult odds, I just think it's realistic, it's responsible, and right now is the right time.